Tonight, remembering a hero, a Fort Nelson firefighter will be laid to rest. Transit scam. Those riding the bus told to beware. And backcountry warning. Spring conditions cause for concern. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. And we begin with flags flying at half-mast tonight in Fort Nelson. A firefighter was killed while off duty in a motor vehicle accident. Ryan Kerr was killed over the Christmas holidays en route to visit his family. The member of the Northern Rockies Fire Department is being remembered as someone who served with courage and distinction. The 45-year-old is also being remembered for the lives he touched. The fire department saying Kerr was a dedicated firefighter, a mentor to youth throughout our community, and has left our department with a missing link. On Friday, we will kneel for his family and for our brothers and sisters, and every day following. We will stand for him. Ryan's funeral is taking place this Friday. It'll take place at the Northern Rockies Recreation Center. It starts at 2 p.m. Transit users are being warned about a scam on social media. Fraudsters are using the BC Transit logo to impersonate the agency. They're trying to encourage riders to buy transit fare cards via a link on Facebook. The agency says, quote, "We do not sell UMO products on social media," unquote. BC Transit reminding the public to not click on a link that you don't trust and don't provide personal or credit card information on an unsecured site. And if you do come across the Facebook post, you are being urged to report it to Facebook's parent company, Meta. To another warning tonight, this one on the risks of being in the backcountry. The sunny and warm weather this time of year is causing snow to melt, but it becomes hard and very slippery when it freezes once again overnight. Search and rescue teams across BC say they're seeing terrible injuries from slips and falls lately. A 17-year-old boy died in a 60-meter fall in the Shuswap region this week, and a 28-year-old hiker died this weekend after slipping and falling 400 meters while trying to retrieve her cell phone. A pair of boating mishaps on the water near Vancouver Island. One man is dead while another recovering in hospital after a sailboat ran aground east of Victoria.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is the Apache.
A mayday call just after midnight on April the 20th requesting immediate help on the rocky shores of San Juan Island. U.S. Coast Guard deploying 2 rescue vessels and a search helicopter to the wreck where crews pulled an injured man from the water. Rescue vessels then found the body of a second man who was pronounced dead on arrival. The surviving sailor was quick to credit the use of a life jacket and emergency marine communications with saving his life. Then on Tuesday, 3 people were thrown overboard in a boating accident northwest of Victoria. The Canadian Coast Guard deployed search crews. They say a mother and her infant were found on shore. However, a 43-year-old man remains missing. Well, to the campaign trail now, where Donald Trump and his tariff threats are sure to be top of mind for many Peace Region voters. Whether it's oil and gas exports, the forest industry, or the price of groceries, there's a real cause for concern. But as Andrew Johnson reports, British Columbians remain split on their pick for Canada's next Prime Minister.
At this Chemainus, BC mill, they're sawing logs and sweating bullets.
Not knowing if the tariff is on and off, the logistics of trying to get wood across the border has been brutal.
50,000 people in BC make their living in the forestry industry, an industry already in crisis. Now the tariff war is adding new urgency to adapt.
I'm off tomorrow to Vietnam and Cambodia and Malaysia to try and find new markets there as well. We have some existing markets. Can we improve them? It'll be tough, but you never know.
He says a reduction in government regulation is at the top of his federal election wish list in a province primed for change. Coming into this vote, really a 3-way split in BC, 14 Liberal seats, 14 Conservative, 12 NDP plus 1 Green. But experts believe, and polls show, the NDP may be in trouble in Metro Vancouver, including Jagmeet Singh's Burnaby Central riding.
I think the future of the NDP is at stake here. And not only Mr. Singh's own seat, but a lot of his colleagues.
Mark Carney's Liberals and Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives hope to capitalize. On Vancouver Island, where 6 of 7 seats are currently orange, experts say the Liberals are polling better than they have in decades.
You have to go back at least 75 years, I think, to see this kind of response for the Liberals on the West Coast.
Also hanging in the balance, the future of Green Party co-leader Elizabeth May. Here on Vancouver Island, she was the Greens' first ever elected MP in 2011. But now that riding is considered a toss-up ahead of Monday's vote. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
And staying with the campaign, Election Day is fast approaching. Today, leaders crisscrossing the country hoping to secure Canadian support as the race enters its final stretch. CTV's Scott Hurst has the latest.
With all platforms now out, party leaders are sharpening their final pitches to voters.
And it comes down to one word: change.
We're going to fight hard for you.
This is the time for serious leadership.
Pierre Poilievre in Hamilton, Ontario today with a message of restoring order, promising a crackdown on 10 cities, amending the criminal code to give officers more power to dismantle encampments, and what he calls a housing-first approach to ensure enough stable alternatives and addiction treatment.
No more excuses by politicians claiming they don't have the powers. The powers will be right there in the criminal code.
Jagmeet Singh started the day in Edmonton promising to fight for national rent control by putting in place a ban on so-called rent evictions, but continuing to face questions about his own future as leader of the party with sagging poll numbers.
I don't hear any bell. You guys hear a bell? I heard the bell from the bike, but I don't hear a bell. This round's not over. This fight's not over.
Mark Carney was out west in Victoria, BC, as Vancouver Island appears poised to be a key battleground, with the Liberals hoping to capitalize. And we heard a familiar message that's been the backbone of the party's campaign, standing up to Donald Trump.
This is a critical election. British Columbians could decide who is Canada's Prime Minister on Monday.
Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet says the Liberals aren't up for the job of representing Quebecers, believing that province still might hand the Bloc, in his words, a huge gift on Monday. Scott Hurst, CTV News, Toronto.
Air Canada has been ordered to pay more than $10 million in damages in a class action lawsuit over misleading ticket prices. The Quebec Court of Appeal ruling on Tuesday the airline violated the province's Consumer Protection Act by charging passengers more than the advertised fare. The 15-year-old case was brought forward by a consumer advocacy group and a Montreal resident who says he paid an extra $124 in taxes, fees, and surcharges. The airline has yet to issue a response. The Hudson's Bay Company is taking steps to close all of its remaining stores. Canada's oldest company filed for bankruptcy protection last month. It has since started liquidation sales at 90 of its 96 locations across the country. But a number of flagship locations in Toronto and Montreal were originally excluded in case a buyer could be found. However, new court filing suggests that's not considered likely at this stage. Liquidation sales will start at those remaining stores on Friday. The Crown Attorney making opening remarks today in the sex assault trial of 5 former World Junior hockey players. CTV's Adrian Gobriel reports from London, Ontario.
The weight of this day outlined on the face of each of the accused as they entered court.
Now it's time that we have a conversation about what is consent to sexual activity in hockey.
With the jury of 14, that includes 11 women and 3 men, listening intently, Crown Prosecutor Heather Donkers began her opening remarks, painting a, quote, roadmap of events that will be challenged during this trial. To protect her identity, we can only refer to the alleged victim as EM. Donkers told the jury this case is about whether EM voluntarily agreed to engage in each and every instance of sexual touching that took place, going on to claim that the defendants took no steps to ensure there was affirmative consent when they touched her. Instead, they just did whatever they wanted.
Just because you consented to some sexual activity with some individuals does not mean that you therefore consented to all sexual activities with all individuals who may be around.
The jury will hear that EM drank approximately 8 drinks on the evening she met some members of the 2018 gold medal winning World Junior team at this London, Ontario bar. She went back to this hotel with World Junior player Michael McLeod and had consensual sex, though following intercourse, the Crown claims McLeod sent a group text inviting teammates to the room. EM alleges that afterwards, 7 others entered the hotel and, quote, directed, manipulated, and intimidated her into remaining in the room where she says she was sexually assaulted. Continual consent in those hours will now be closely scrutinized.
You have autonomy over your body, and you get to make those decisions about what you're going to engage in, when and with who, in an ongoing way.
Former Team Canada captain Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Carter Hart, McLeod, and Alex Fermenton have each been charged with sexual assault. McLeod is also facing one charge of being party to the offense.
This afternoon, we were expecting to hear a London police detective continue with this trial's initial testimony, though after the break, the judge called back the jury and quickly dismissed them, saying something happened over the lunch hour that she needs to think about and discuss with the lawyers. Court is scheduled to resume tomorrow. Adrian Gobriel, CTV News, London, Ontario.
Today marked a new phase in the ancient ceremonies and traditions of laying a pope to rest. Francis's coffin was taken to St. Peter's Basilica to lie in state ahead of his funeral on Saturday. CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin is following all of the developments from Vatican City.
A procession through St. Peter's Square, retracing some of the same route Pope Francis traveled just hours before his passing. Now his final journey from Casa St. Marta to St. Peter's Basilica, accompanied by cardinals and the Swiss Papal Guard. Tens of thousands crowded the square to witness the moment. Among them Brandon Figueroa, a missionary in Bulgaria.
I'm very happy to say goodbye or see you later, Pope Francis, because I learned a lot of things from him.
Among the first to pay their respects to the Pope, lying in state in this simple wooden coffin near ground level, not on a pedestal, were members of the clergy. I was very emotional because of the great silence in the basilica. It took me closer to him, says Sister Catarina from Brazil. But others too, including some of other faiths, stood in line for more than 5 hours.
It's incredible. When you see it in the television, you also don't believe that it's so as it is, and so many people.
Security has been stepped up and preparations are underway for the funeral Saturday, a moment of tradition and rituals but simplified in accordance with the Pope's wishes. Cardinals from around the world have gathered, including Marc Ouellet from Quebec, who now lives in Rome. Ouellet said he admired Pope Francis for his humility, bravery, and his missionary spirit, something many others here too have come to praise.
The public viewing will continue until 8 p.m. local time here on Friday night. At that time, the casket will be closed in preparation for the funeral. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Vatican City.
Elon Musk says he's changing gears and planning to scale back his work as a government cost cutter to focus more on Tesla. Musk taking to his other company, X, posting, quote, "Not stepping down, just reducing time allocation now that Doge is established," unquote. It comes after Tesla profits plummeted more than 70% in the first quarter of this year. The drastic cost-cutting efforts by the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, led by Musk, has led to anger and boycotts toward Tesla. Musk says he plans to start stepping back next month. And a new study shows social media platforms like X and Facebook may be losing some of its charm among younger generations. According to Pew Research Center, 48% of teenagers now say online platforms have a mostly negative effect on their peers. That's an increase of 16% compared to just 3 years ago. Only 11% say social media is mostly positive for young men and women. 44% of teens also say they're now spending less time using online platforms and their smartphones in general. And we're getting a better sense of how cannabis legalization may be tied to growing use among teenagers. Researchers found cannabis use among teens rose 26% in provinces that legalized the sale of edibles and extracts back in 2019. Edible use alone increased 43%. The study also found cannabis use remains stable among 12 to 17-year-olds in Quebec, where the sale of edibles remains banned. The law prohibits selling cannabis to anyone younger than the age of 18, but researchers say legalization may have made products more accessible to teenagers and influenced attitudes towards using them. All right, stay tuned. I'll be right back after the break with weather.